23rd of September. The adventure begins.
Early Saturday morning, our group of 122 met in the Hotel Sonesta for an orientation conference. Bruce tells the group how we are related to Egyptian royalty.
Who in here is from Ephraim or Manasseh? If you're
Okay,
from Ephraim
Mina says
or
I'm
Manasseh,
Egyptian. Hello.
he married the daughter of the high priest of On, so your family comes from Egypt.
Yep. Well said. You are half Egyptian.
Bruce Porter, his team, and local guides talk about what we will see on the tour today.
To cut the mountain and make a temple deep inside the mountain.
Mido gave a historical background for those ancient places.
We have with us the
Bruce then introduced papyrus samples with significance to the early beliefs, caused to be written by the pharaoh's command.
We've had him do the 3 facsimiles on papyrus.
The first papyrus shown is a creation of 3 facsimiles. Facsimiles include the representation account of the attempt by a priest of Pharaoh to sacrifice Abraham to Egyptian gods.
So we have the 3 facsimiles for the death of Abraham, the ascension and resurrection in facsimile number 2, and then the enthronement in facsimile number 3.
The pearl of great price. Abraham chapter 1. Quote, "My fathers, having turned from their righteousness and from the holy commandments which the Lord their God had given unto them, unto the worshipping of the gods of the heathen, utterly refused to hearken to my voice. For their hearts were set to do evil, and were wholly turned to the God of Elkanah, and the God of Libnah, and the God of Mamakra, and the God of Koresh, and the God of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Therefore they turned their hearts to the sacrifice of the heathen, in offering up their children unto these dumb idols, and hearkened not unto my voice, but endeavored to take away my life by the hand of the priest of Elkanah. The priest of Elkanah was also the priest of Pharaoh. And as they lifted up their hands upon me, that they might offer me up and take away my life, behold, I lifted up my voice unto the Lord my God. And the Lord hearkened and heard, and he filled me with the vision of the Almighty, and the angel of his presence stood by me, and immediately unloosed my bands. And his voice was unto me, Abraham, Abraham. My name is Jehovah, and I have heard thee, and have come down to deliver thee, and to take thee away from thy father's house and from all thy kinsfolk, into a strange land which thou knowest not of." Unquote.
In 1966, an Egyptian scholar from the University of Utah named Aziz Atiyah found 10 fragments and arranged to have them returned to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The fragments were discovered to be held by the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, where Kirtland-era paper was attached to the backside as reinforcement. These papyrus fragments are now preserved in the state of the Art Church History Library. Bruce also described the second facsimile and third facsimiles as a representation of the resurrection, ascension, and enthronement of the pharaoh. The last representation was translated by Joseph Smith, but was not officially published due to his martyrdom. An in-depth explanation by Bruce is given by links in the description below. Bruce Porter showed the group another papyrus that is a representation written by the scribe Ani from the Scroll of the Dead. It is the depiction of the pharaoh ascending and entering into the presence of the god Osiris to be with him forever. The papyrus replica is a colored representation incorporating the same elements found in the papyrus found in the Metropolitan Museum of Great Britain.
Okay, we have 2/3 of the book of Abraham that he translated. The last third of the book of Abraham and the book of Joseph was never prepared for publication. Joseph translated them and had the manuscript. In the 1870s, the prophet sent Elder Pratt and Elder Smith back to Nauvoo to purchase the rest of the book of Abraham manuscript, the last third, and the book of Joseph manuscript, and then invite Emma to come out west. Emma didn't come, but when they came back, they reported they had a very successful mission. There's a whole story behind this and what I'm seeing, and I was able to read the minutes of the first presidency when they set them apart and what they did back there. Well, the book of Joseph we don't have, because Joseph always wanted to prepare any revelation that he had or document or text. He wanted to prepare it for publication by going through it over and over again, because he once said, "The Lord will hold me accountable for anything that I say." Just before his death, he was working on the Book of Abraham, preparing it for publication. And it was printed in the Times and Seasons in 2 installments. So he would work on, I think it was 1 and 2, and part of 3, then he published that in the Times and Seasons, then he worked on the next section, or the next installment, which was facsimile number 2, and finished chapters 3 through 5, and then he put facsimile number 3 in there, and then he was martyred before he finished the last third. Now, one reason we know that is because in facsimile number 1, it's talked about in the Book of Abraham. Facsimile number 2 is talked about in the Book of Abraham. Facsimile number 3 isn't. He was working on that part of the manuscript, preparing it for publication when he was martyred. And then he was going to move to the Book of Joseph. Well, where does the Book of Joseph come from? And what happened to the Book of Joseph? Joseph Smith explained to Oliver Cowdery one of the facsimiles. He explained more than one, but he explained one of the main facsimiles to the Book of Joseph. When I was doing research on the Book of Abraham, I realized that there was a papyrus that the church had that Joseph Smith gave the explanation to, and it came from the Book of Joseph. I made a copy of that, took it to Brother Nibley. I was walking campus with him, and I said, "I think this is from the book, a facsimile from the Book of Joseph." He, very Nibley-like, he grabs it from my hands, looks at it for a minute, and then hands it right back and says, "Yes, it is." And I said, "Why haven't you written anything on it?" And he said, "I don't want to unless I have to," which was his way of telling me to keep my mouth shut. And like I mentioned before today, he's dead. I didn't, he died, and I can. So...
The patriarchal religion in Egypt is founded on the concept of the redemption of evil and the exaltation of the pharaoh patterned after the early religion of the patriarchs. These ordinances of exaltation are seen in Egypt carved into the walls and written on papyrus. After the informative conference held at the hotel, the large group boarded 3 buses to explore Memphis. Mount Rahina Museum is about an hour's drive to the west bank of the River Nile. Memphis is where young Abraham lived. Joseph lived here after he was sold to Egypt. It is the same city where baby Moses, placed in a floating basket in the Nile River, was discovered by the pharaoh's daughter, believed to be Hatshepsut. Memphis served as the historic capital of Egypt from 3100 BC to 700 BC. Driving through Cairo, a city with 22 million people, seems to go on forever. We drive past the parade viewing platform where President Anwar Sadat was assassinated in 1981.
On the 6th of October 1981, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat was assassinated by members of the Egyptian Islamic Jihad, a terrorist group that was enraged by the peace treaty that he'd negotiated with Israel. Sadat's assassins were arrested, put on trial and executed, while the death of the president led to Vice President Hosni Mubarak becoming the premier just 8 days after the assassination.
Mosques are numerous along the highway. Housing is obviously different in Cairo from what we are used to in the United States. The huddled living areas we see along the way are quite picturesque in their own right. Certain residential structures are of considerable age, while others appear to be newly constructed. There are many small stores everywhere, even under highway bridges. It is a normal way of life to dry laundry outside the windows and balconies. Places of ruin and disrepair are mixed with newly constructed freeways. The Egyptian government recently built expressways that go right through newer and older townships. Families are compensated and subsequently relocated to alternative housing. A few online comments include, "Whoopity skeet, the view from your bedroom has been transformed into concrete. Doopity dar, your backyard has been transformed into a car. And zippity zoom, I hope you enjoy the fumes." Some tall buildings have scars from when they used to be general family living quarters. Several buildings appear to have freestanding concrete columns with porcupine-like rebar sticking out of them. This long-term construction exists while people still live on floors below. It's a common sight. The Muslim religion encourages believers not to go into debt. Once the family has sufficient money, they continue to build on the new upper floor. It is common for multiple generations to live in the same high-rise homes for years. Furthermore, homes that were under constant construction were exempt from property tax under a 1954 law. It's also hard to find title ownership for 70% of properties. However, even with the seemingly nice benefit, the consumption tax is at 14%. We passed by a 3-story home with 2 of the lower stories having only roll-up doors on the front. Not sure what that's all about. The sides of the road are adorned with political and commercial posters and billboards. We see people who clean the streets by hand and sweep the gutters. The majority of the local population is hard at work, with a few individuals just sitting around. As we drive alongside the Cairo Canal, it's often cluttered with trash. The Egyptian government is trying to clean up these vital waterways. Silt originating from the Nile is being constantly removed from the canals, funded by the Egyptian government. The silt condition persists despite the presence of 17 dams on the Nile. With the introduction of new irrigation methods, 3 million acres of land have been reclaimed from the desert in the past 5 years. Every possible mode of transportation is encountered along the congested route. Small trucks loaded with materials are combined with workers who are unable to fit into the cabs. The Egyptians have even come up with motorcycle pickups. It may not be fancy, but serves the purpose. Donkeys and water buffalo are in use today, as they have been for hundreds of years. Numerous small shops are situated along the canal. The buses continue into the countryside, where they pass green crops and palm trees. Egypt has only 6% green land. The rest is barren desert. Whenever there is water-source dirt, oasis palm groves grow like weeds. A primary crop of sorghum, commonly referred to as Egyptian wheat, is grown in numerous fields. Because of its gluten-free properties, sorghum is a welcome whole-grain alternative for those who deal with gluten intolerance or celiac disease. The agriculture and food sector in Egypt accounts for only 15 to 20% of the gross national product.
Memphis,
Upon our arrival in Memphis, we depart from the buses for an excursion to the Mount Rahina Museum, which is primarily located outdoors. Bruce and Mido provide an introduction to the cultural and religious history associated with archaeological finds from the ancient capital. Artifacts belonging to the initial religion, following Adam, have been discovered in Memphis ruins, including the oldest document in the world. It's called the Shabaka Stone. It is currently housed in the British Museum. Writings on the stone describe intelligences or spirits that existed before the earth was created. Furthermore, it is the first creation epic ever written in the world as a temple drama.
The oldest document in the world, the oldest one in the world, the oldest written document in the world was discovered here. It's called the Shabaka Stone. And the Shabaka Stone talks about intelligences and spirits that existed before the earth was created. It talks about Ptah, the Father God, who is here, and he's deciding which son he's created. It says in the Shabaka Stone, he created the earth, the heavens and the earth by the word of his mouth, by the word of his power, it says. Just like it says in Moses chapter 1. And once the earth is created, he has a council. There's a council, and he's choosing which son to place over this world that he's newly created, that's been newly created. And he has two sons. One is arguing against the other. And it says in the text, he chooses his most beloved son to be the God for this world. And the evil brother, as the myth goes on, the evil brother ends up killing him, killing the good one later on, after the people come. He ends up killing him later on, and that one becomes resurrected and exalted, allowing everyone to become resurrected and exalted. And it says, and the thing is that oldest text in the world talks about the pre-earth, the Father God, Ptah, choosing his most beloved son to be the God over this earth, over the rejection by Seth or Set, the evil son, and his evil brother, that rejection, and he's chosen.
The Shabaka Stone has hieroglyph inscriptions all over it, since an Egyptian farmer in the middle of the 19th century found it and recut it to be used as a grinding stone. It is badly worn. For decades, it was used for that purpose. To allow the grains to slide out, radiating lines were cut in the stone. That's unfortunate, but there is just enough information to figure out what it says.
So that's the Shabaka Stone, but even when it was recorded down in about 700 BC, the text tells us that already it was a really, really ancient, script that was now falling apart, and they had to record it down. So that's what that says. I mean, it's obviously a shame that it's been so defaced, but at least we've got, the gist of what it says.
The group took advantage of a brief period of spare time to examine all the archaeological artifacts from that era. One of the tour groups has their photo taken in front of another Ramses statue. A highlight today was seeing the huge Colossus of Ramses II, better known as Ramses the Great. To get a better view, the public procession circled the first floor before ascending the stairs to a balcony to take in the view from the top. Mido discussed the historical background of this immense statue. It is currently preserved in an indoor section of the museum. The papyrus scroll in Ramses' hand caught our eye.
First of all, when we discovered this statue, it was laying down in this area and the two legs were broken, as you see. This statue here and all the statues we found it in the city of Memphis have been destroyed by the invasion and the attack of the Ashurian king. He came during the time of Jeremiah to chase the Israelites coming to Egypt. And the Israelites in the time of Jeremiah was living in 5 different cities. One of them was Memphis. So when he reached to the city of Memphis, he destroyed the city. He destroyed the statues. He destroyed the temple. And that's why all the statues we found it was broken down. This statue here, we find the two legs are broken down and the statue is laying down. And we decided to make no restoration in this statue. And by this way, we got it as it is. From the ancient Egyptian time, no restoration has been done for this one.
Mido talked about the bloodline of the pharaohs and the generations of kings that were written on the stone of the sculpture.
If you take a look here, you can see the leg is one step forward, the left leg is one step forward. This means this is a statue for the king in his life. And if he is in his life, so he had to have his symbol of authority, which is his lion. And that's why if you take a look to his hand, he's holding a papyrus scroll. And in this papyrus scroll, it has his name in it, and in the same time, it has his lion. All the kings who ruled the Egypt from the time of Menes, the first rich was king, all the way to his time.
After the invasion of the Hyksos and their ascendancy to power in 1650 BC, the city of Memphis was subjected to siege. Many monuments and statues of the ancient capital were damaged or dismantled after it was captured. Mido talks about another statue and its significance.
That is Ramses II, by the way, the same famous king, and his dress has a very unique design. Take a look at the shape of the dress. It is the creation stone. It is the pyramid. And he is on the top of the pyramid. To do what? Exaltation. So by this way, now he is not a normal king. Now he is not a human being anymore. He became one with God. And when he became one with God, he know everything. And he know the way of exaltation. And by this way, he could lead his people for exaltation. That is the story of the Middle Age.
Mido mentioned an intriguing box located in the tomb of Ramesses that contained a tooth. The National Geographic Society conducted interesting research about this tooth and its importance.
Then we have the scanning machine from National Geographic Channel, and we start scanning the face. And by this way, they start to make face reconstructions. And while they are doing that, they find out there is a missing tooth in the jaw of the mummy. And that is motivating our professor because before that time, they discover a canopic jar box, which is made out of wood and has a canopic jar, which is made out of alabaster inside it, and it got the liver of Queen Hatshepsut, and the name was written there. And with the liver inside the box, they have one tooth. They would like to be perfect in the second life. So that's why if someone missing a tooth or something like that, they put it inside with him inside the tomb or the mummy, believing that he will gonna be perfect in the second life. So they are matching the size of the tooth with the size of the missing one, and it match. So they start to try to find some kind of DNA, abstract DNA, and it match with the liver. So now we know that this mummy belonged to a queen, and the queen was called Hatshepsut.
Bruce Porter discussed the primordial mound belief with the ancient Egyptians. The primordial mound is the location of creation, on which the creator god settled when it first appeared out of the waters of the abyss. The cycle of creation itself was inaugurated by the first acts he performed there.
That idea is that primordial mound. When the mound comes out of the waters of creation, that's where God stands to finish the rest of creation, and that's what the pyramid represents. That primordial mound, where the God stands on top of that primordial mound to finish the rest of creation. And our temples all represent that primordial mound. Throughout the Old Testament, Christ talks about it in the New Testament. We see this in every ancient culture. That primordial mound, primeval hillock, axis mundi, navel of the earth, world mountain, stone of creation. Those are all words that different cultures call that primordial mound. And closest point between heaven and earth, where the three worlds come together that Mido had talked about: the world of the gods, the world of the living, and the world of the dead. That's why our temples, and that's why the primordial mound is there. That's why the living can do work for the dead that will be binding in the world of the gods, because that's where all three worlds come together. That's where time and space ceases to exist. And every temple we have represents that coming together of the three worlds, where time and space ceases to exist. So we can do work for them. That's what Christ is telling Peter in Matthew 16. Christ talks about those three worlds.
In our next episode, the tour group leaves the Memphis Mount Rahina Museum and explore the fabulous Sakkara Archaeological Site and Pyramid of Djoser. We hope you will join us again with Bruce Porter and his epic tour, Gospel on the Nile.